Alrighty, so we are live. What's going on, everybody? Original Dobo here, and it's Maury, right?
Yes.
Maury Covington with Xdynamics has joined me this evening. I asked Maury to come on and talk a little bit about Xdynamics as a company and talk a little bit about the Evolve products. So with that being said, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, how you got started with Xdynamics?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me here. My history with Xdynamics, how I got started. I'm a cinematographer by trade. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in cinematography, and I was doing that for a long time. I love, imagery, color correcting, lighting, composition is a big passion of mine. And I got into kind of the end user development, understanding the philosophy of use of technology, and got into that study, kind of went down that rabbit hole, started to get a handle on that and enjoyed it. And Xdynamics was looking for someone to, take their platform and assist in, the understanding of what the end user needs. How could we do something maybe a little different, maybe a little better than other people are doing, or at least give it a good try. And develop something with the end user in mind from a cinematographer's perspective. So that's kind of that was my approach, and that's kind of what I do here now.
Gotcha. No, that's an awesome approach. I like that. Like, from a use case scenario, that's sort of how I got my job with my company. I was a store manager. I was a mechanic, and I do automotive software, oddly enough. And they wanted somebody who was on the outside. I think that's honestly the best way to develop any product is from somebody who sort of just uses it as the general person. Obviously, you being a cinematographer and drones being a huge part of cinematography. That's awesome. Now, tell me a little bit more about Xdynamics, because they're sort of a little bit of an unknown. I know last 2 CESs ago, we saw the Evolve for the first time. And then this year, I actually got a chance to see it like in full action, flying, got a great demo, got a chance to talk to the team while I was there. But tell me a little bit about like the fundamentals and about what you all represent in the drone industry.
So I think our approach, is best described as, we're a prosumer drone.
Okay.
We're a drone for someone who knows how to fly already. For example, we don't have obstacle avoidance, and that kind of dovetails into our cinematography approach, because most cinematographers or people using drones professionally, they're going to turn that off.
Right.
So it's like we can use the investment from that and put it back into the drone, and that's kind of how we look at that. But we're trying to separate ourselves in a few different categories. The Everything is dampened and tuned on our drone, and you got to hold one.
Yeah.
Where the motors mount, there's no play.
I agree
We
with that.
wind our own motors in house. All the tolerances are really, really small. We've really, gone above and beyond in that respect. I would call us overbuilt, but in a good way. I think that's our approach. We want to be a highly tuned vehicle, not just, you can create a drone. I mean, you can 3D print a drone, but bringing the quality and materials up to a different level is in our approach and, how we're trying to get things done. And a few key features, of course, we carbon fiber, 50 times stronger than plastic.
What was the idea behind the carbon fiber, though? Like when you guys were sitting back designing this drone, like where did that come into play? Did you guys think that maybe that would sort of price it out of the ballpark, or were you thinking to yourself that this is something that's never been done before?
I I think the thought process was, what is the strongest, lightest material we can make this out of?
No, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and strength is important diagonally across a drone. The less twist is there, the higher performance you can get. Those little differences can add up to battery life, all sorts of different things. So having that, and it's a monocoque design, which a lot of sports cars have, like high-end sports cars. But basically, what it is, the tension and compression forces, it's all one piece of carbon fiber. So the tension and compression forces act equally all around it. So if someone does put it in the ground, user error, not ours.
Right.
But if someone does crash, you know, it's going to take quite a hit, and it's basically the same physics as if you put an egg in your hand, like in middle school, and you try to squeeze it and it won't break.
Right.
Same exact principle. That is a
Gotcha.
monocoque design, a single shell, basically.
So it's definitely rigid, and I sort of experienced that myself. Like first thing I do, I'm pretty particular about drones, and you know, I know at least my Phantom experience cracks at some point. So that was always a concern for me is, you know, when you buy a product, whether it be a camera, whatever, you want to know that you can get a couple of good life cycles out of it. I think a good life cycle for a camera is, you know, 4 years or so. And I think drones really shouldn't be any different. But I noticed that this was definitely a lot more rigid. It did have some heft to it though, once the battery was loaded, which was sort of shocking for carbon fiber, but it felt really solid. But I was just wondering, like, you know, the whole thought process behind that. So the cameras, you made the cameras modular as well, so you can obviously grow with this drone.
Yeah, exactly. So we're trying to create a platform. We are working with FLIR. They've been really helpful.
Awesome.
Great guys over there. Pretty the industry standard, really, for thermal cameras. So we're working with them, developing a gimbal that accepts all their FLIR view cameras.
Oh, nice.
So a lot of people have already made that investment. You know, that's an expensive camera to own, and we've seen them 3D printed, strapped to the side of another drone. A lot of times, there's not. You know, if someone's moving to our platform, we could design our own thermal camera. We have the
Sure.
capability to do that, but it's almost like as an olive branch out to the community. Like, listen, we're not trying to. The worst thing is when you move to a platform or buy something new and you have to reinvest in all your gear. I've done that before as a cinematographer. I'm
Yeah.
sure you've probably done that
I've
before.
literally just did it.
But it sucks when everything is really, really proprietary. So that's kind of our olive branch out to, you know, the community and users that already have that platform, you know, that FLIR camera, or they can get one used relatively inexpensively and get in that side of things, that game, you know, where you're looking at stuff through, you know, infrared, which is pretty cool.
Right. Right. And then you also had the Micro Four Thirds sensor, which is what I'm really super
Yes.
excited about. I saw the prototype of it and I fell in love with it. So tell me, because we'll come to the sensor that it ships with, but I want to know more about this because I'm sure a lot of people are probably thinking like, man, Micro Four Thirds, you know, 1 inch is all the rave, but Micro Four Thirds takes it to a whole nother level. Tell me a little bit more about that sensor and what's going into it.
Well, that sensor is, we're going to get 4K, over a 4K 60. And we're working out exactly what that's going to be, but it's, you know, over 13 stops dynamic range, over 20 megapixel. It's a beautiful sensor and a good illustration of the quality of that. So even our sensor now, it is a small sensor, right, that is on the drone now. But what we do with that sensor, I think, is quite impressive. I've seen a lot of side-by-sides with other drones with bigger sensors, and we hold up. And that's because we invested heavy in the processor that takes that data and moves it. So that's where we can gain. You know, when we have a smaller sensor, that's on the drone now,
Right.
but with that more robust processor, we're getting a lot out of our sensor. And our camera team, I really am. What they're doing is amazing to bring it up to a level where it can kind of compete with larger sensors. So
So I got a
I think,
question for you though.
yeah,
So with that processor, and maybe you can tell me, maybe you can't tell me, would this essentially mean that we're going to be offered different frame rates, higher frame rates with that sensor, such as
the
4K
Micro
60
Four
maybe?
Thirds
Yeah,
definitely over 60
over 60.
at 4K.
And is that going to be a 10-bit system?
Um, I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
fine. I just know as a color, you know, as someone in, you know, who's a colorista or a cinematographer, 10 bits important, you know, important to be able to push those colors to their max. So something I just was worried about, but I think it's just awesome to have a
I'll have
massive
to get
sensor
back
like
to you
that.
on that.
All right. We'll put it in the
But
parking
yeah,
lot.
yeah.
I just want to quickly, we have Ken Heron in the chat. Captain Drone is joining us this evening, along with California Phantom. Thank you so much, guys, for everybody who's hanging out and enjoying the stream. 36 of you in here watching. Be sure to definitely go ahead and drop a like on the stream. Just let us know you're here. So larger sensor. It ships with the compact sensor. Talk a little bit about that. I want to know more about the move to ship with the compact sensor versus the, lead with the, obviously the best hand, I guess, best way to put it.
Well, there will be in the future, you will be able to actually choose the model camera that comes with it.
Awesome.
So you will be able to choose that as an option
Nice.
when you purchase. So, in the short term, we built it around that 4K sensor that you've used, but you'll be able to, choose an option for camera and buy it that way as well.
Gotcha. So we're talking about basically a drone that is sort of a transformer in a sense. You can use it with a FLIR system. You can have your option of, staying with the lower end compact sensor and then obviously go up to a micro four thirds sensor. But these are only 3 cameras that potentially are on the table right now in development, right? There could always be more, it sounds like.
There could always be more. Right now, those are our focus.
Gotcha.
Getting those out the door, but definitely room for, we're creating a platform, and so having the, the size where we fall, it's you can put it in a backpack. It comes with a backpack.
Sure.
In that, you can hike it around. You're not going to put it in your pocket,
No, definitely not.
It's for professional use, for that prosumer market, for real estate, indie feature, even maybe a little bit beyond indie feature with the micro four thirds camera. You're going to be able to get some cool shots.
So leading towards that, obviously you sort of gave us a lot of great use case scenarios for this. Where would you put this drone in between, like, I hate to compare it, but we're going to bring it up because obviously they're sort of like the largest out there, but where would you put this in comparison to DJI's lineup? Obviously much larger than a Mavic, smaller, larger even than a Phantom. It sort of floats in what the Phantom and the Inspire lineup really.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, we wouldn't be here having this conversation if it wasn't for DJI. So props to DJI.
Absolutely.
One of the first drones I ever bought was a DJI, and it was awesome. So, but I would say we fit in between, the Inspire and the Phantom.
Okay, that's fair enough.
It's basically, I mean, size wise, it fits there.
Sure.
The actual motor size is, I think it's the same exact motor size that's on the Inspire 1. I'm not sure about the 2. But and we're kind of priced right there as well. Our price point is actually in between those 2. So that's, I would say that's what we.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate, because if you think about it, the highest end Phantom line is what, about $1,500, I think right now. Obviously when they first launched, like $1,700. For an Inspire 1, I think you can get them like pretty much for about $1,400, maybe a little bit more. Obviously it's later on down the road, and obviously we all know that a fully spec'd or a reasonably spec'd Inspire 2 is going to set you back at least $4,000, if that. So what are we talking about, like when we were looking at towards, and again, I'm not going to hold you to anything. I don't think anybody here will either, but what are we looking at, for that, obviously that micro four thirds sensor? Because again, this is a drone timeline. Yeah.
Max 2 months.
2 months. Okay. That's reasonable.
Yeah.
And how are you guys with your timelines? Because obviously we saw this 2 CESs ago. It wasn't really flying. Saw a video about it about a year ago. Never saw it actually take flight. A lot of talk about it, but no flight. And then this year we've obviously got them in our hands, and I think people are a little concerned with it.
Well, I will tell you this. We're a company that's here to stay. We are really passionate. Our team is super passionate. The cool thing about the drone industry is that it's not like another technical field, because people really enjoy drones. They enjoy flying.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a different dynamic. No pun intended. but it's a different dynamic of people who just, and you know, we're here to succeed. We're here for the long haul, and we feel really good about staying around for the long haul. As far as the initial release, this is the first iteration. This
Sure.
is version 1. You know, um, so all the work and everything that was put in to make this drone, it wasn't like, when are they going to come out with version 3? It's taken 3
Right.
years. You know, this is the first version. So now that we've released, and we're working, and we're in our groove, so to speak, things will just keep clicking along. We're moving now. So of course, the first one, before you release for the first time, the first version, the first iteration, it's something you want to get right. So
Right. So
that was why, we weren't exactly dragging our heels. We were just trying to get it right.
so let's go to that. Let's talk about that here. So we sort of know a little bit about you, know a little bit more about the plans for the Evolve and just the company as a whole. Let's talk about the current release, because obviously a lot of us were able to get our hands on this drone early. And some of us had wildly different experiences across the board. I had a fairly great experience. I had, obviously I had some problems when I first received the drone, which I was shocked. I called and you guys were able to resolve pretty quickly. From my understanding, you guys are based here in the States, right?
Yeah, we're in Irvine, California.
Okay.
And, one of the ways, mentioning, piggybacking on what you just said,
Sure.
one of the ways we want to be different. And I remember, I feel like customer service is something that's slowly getting worse and worse just in other
I agree with you.
And I remember it used to be better. It just feels like it used to be better. And that's a place where we really want to excel. We want to be available. We want, you might call in, get a hold of me, get a hold of our senior tech. And we want to be quick to respond. And we want to just go the extra mile and kind of, so
Do,
piggybacking on what you said. Yeah.
do you think that as you guys grow as a company, you'll still be able to deliver on that, personal, support?
It's
Because
one of our core,
yeah,
it's one of the core, principles and how we want to operate.
okay.
So, yeah.
I can dig that. And again, like you said, I mean, I guess my takeaway from a conversation just previous with you is that, this is sort of not a drone for everybody in a sense. It's going to appeal to a certain niche of flyers. Obviously you said it best, prosumers. So that would make sense to me.
It we're not copying anybody. You look at our drone, it doesn't look
Yeah,
like,
it doesn't.
I mean, they
Look like
all
anything.
have propellers on them, but
Sure.
it looks different. And but we're not trying to emulate. I mean, we're inspired by the market and different things people are doing, but we're really trying to do our own thing.
Right. You're staying original.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right. So let's talk about this release a little bit. So we've had, a couple of us have gotten hands on it. And you've obviously seen, videos float out there. No pun intended with that. But what's your takeaway with these videos? Because you guys aren't mad about what we have to say. You genuinely aren't. You didn't tell us what we could or couldn't do with any of these videos. You've pretty much given us free reign to do as we please. And honestly, I've had very little communication with you all as to anything that I've done. I've just sort of, and I think that's really anybody. So what's the takeaways so far, like from the videos you've seen and your impressions right now of the product?
There's obviously a few issues that we've seen some consistency with that we take incredibly seriously. And fortunately, because we've been studying this and looking over the past weeks and stuff, and there are things that we can improve through software.
Okay.
And that's what we're working on. We're hustling right now to do that. I will say that, it's, as a reviewer, as someone who, like yourself, you're very familiar with digging into the minutia and seeing all these things, and paying close attention to these things, and you have a wide variety of drones to compare to.
Right.
What we're finding because when we sell a drone, we're not getting a lot I can't remember getting any real negative feedback from the people actually purchasing our drone, which is a good thing. It's like getting into the minutia, things start to creep up. But I don't know. I just want to make that point. I think it's a point worth making. But the one thing, which issues are you referring to?
So all right. So let's start with, obviously, I think one of the biggest concerns that a lot of us have, and I have it too, is the video breakup while we're flying. Obviously, there is some distance limitations with this drone that some of us who are accustomed to one brand or another haven't yet experienced. But we have, obviously, this drone, and we'll just throw it out there. It's $2,500. It's not a cheap drone. And obviously none of us bought these drones. They were provided, but we're thinking of it in a mindset of a consumer. If I paid for this drone, I took it out, let's say 500, 600 feet. I'm getting a lot of interference, video breakup. I want to know, what is Xdynamics doing to address that situation?
So we use Amimon for our video signal.
Okay.
So have you heard of Teradek?
I have not. So pretend I'm an idiot, which
no problem.
Some of these guys out there may be like, yeah, he doesn't have to pretend too hard, but pretend I'm an idiot. Break it down to me in layman's terms.
The industry standard for wireless video transmission in cinematography, big budget movies, I'm talking, could be Peter Jackson or Quentin, whoever.
Okay.
They use Teradek. That's like the industry standard.
Gotcha.
Pretty much everyone knows in that industry. They know Teradek. So Amimon makes the core technology. Actually, Amimon was just bought by Teradek, so they're both the same thing now.
Gotcha.
But so we use they have the industry standard. They have the fastest wireless video at 1080 60 with the fastest latency on the planet.
Okay.
They have the best. There's no one better. So we have the smallest form of their technology in our drone.
Gotcha.
So we go 1 kilometer away, and a lot of people are like, well, I'd like to go 3 miles. Again, generally speaking, I would say it's not very often where you'll go beyond 1 kilometer away. It's if you're using it in a professional way.
So I'm going to echo that, not to cut you off, but yeah. I agree with that, because I find a lot of the clips I throw out there in film, a lot of my best work happens when I can see my drone. If I can see it, visualize what's happened on the screen, but also see it, like visually watch it move in the manner I want. I mean, I fly close range. I mean, it looks like we're flying really far, but honestly, my best work always happens close range. So the range wasn't really an issue for me, but that video breakup though.
And that's where I was going. So we're kind of, every other part of the drone is our own algorithm. The flight control, the gimbal, everything is our own. We from scratch built the algorithms for that, which is kind of unheard of. And to go even deeper, we do 90% of our own R&D and 90% of our own manufacturing.
Oh, wow.
So we're not buying things already made, put together. We're actually making them ourselves.
You're not licensing somebody else's research.
Right. I mean, we're using a Sony sensor,
sure,
but we're building everything, so why wouldn't we use a Sony sensor though? They're awesome. So anyways, we do have some software that we're working on where we can fix some of those issues.
Okay.
But it's, and so we will have a fix for that. The short answer is we will have a fix for that.
And that's fair enough. So it's not like you're just saying, oh no, there's nothing wrong. Like sort of like, you're not pulling an Apple basically telling us that we're holding it wrong.
No.
There's something that you're actively looking into.
In environments where there's a lot of interference, it is a little too sensitive.
Okay.
And so it's basically a sensitivity issue that we have to make some adjustments, but we're on top of it.
Okay. And obviously, for the photographer nerds out there, you guys are addressing some of the things that, we're missing. Like I noticed there was no 4x3 RAW. There's no log, at least on the base sensor. So
those are updates coming down.
Okay. Yeah. And in my experience, I found that the images, or at least the video, naturally right out of the camera was a bit soft, but a little bit of post sharpening, fix that up. I was probably one of the biggest people who talked about the Mavic 2 Pro when it first came out, and it was very soft images, and it's more geared towards that, post production process.
Yeah, I would rather, so again, I'm from the cinematography
Sure.
background, and so that's kind of, keep that in mind when like our tuning is in that direction. So I would rather, if it was me, I would rather make that sharpness adjustment in
I'm
post if
seeing
I
that now.
wanted to.
I'm learning.
Yeah.
It's easier to do it in post and screw it up in camera. It's harder to
Yeah, I would
reverse.
rather have that latitude later to really
Sure.
just sit there and also see the image on a big monitor and then make the adjustments rather than on a smaller monitor while you're flying it. So that's a little bit of the philosophy of that.
Okay. Um,
But more
so
options are coming, like a flat look, and a few other like bleach bypass. We're going to actually have a few looks that'll be available.
okay, so I did see quite a few placeholders in the software itself. So I mean, usually that's an indication something's coming. Now, you guys obviously opted to choose LiDAR as sort of that vision position sensor down at the bottom, and I did notice that there is a vision position sensor as well. But in my test, and I'll tell you, my first experience with this drone, I got it up in the air. I was super excited when it first came. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it's here. I get it up in the air. And I guess I underestimated how much power the controller drew. And the battery died in the controller. The drone was stuck up in the air. And I'm thinking to myself, crap, this is day one. I've got this $2,500 unit in the air. I don't know where it's going to land. I mean, luckily for me, it landed, relatively close to
Yeah.
where it took off. I was excited, surprised, relieved actually. But I noticed some were saying that it was a little bit floaty, like it didn't really hold its position very well. And I'm assuming that also entails to the algorithm as well.
Yeah. So we've actually done tests like where we'll take the controller and we'll just take the battery out of the controller
Okay.
just to test the return to home. Like, so
You guys
it
are
will
brave.
come back if you just take the battery. If you're flying it and just take the battery out, it's going to
Sure.
come back to you within about 3 to 10 feet.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean it was pretty
yeah,
close. It avoided the barbecue next to it. I mean, it
yeah.
was I was really shocked. I was relieved. I was really relieved. Um, the controller itself is really interesting. I noticed you guys are running like a custom version of a skin on top of Android. It looks like.
Mhm.
Um, I've talked to Matt in development. He said that possibly you are going to be developing ways to possibly sideload applications in the future. Is that true?
We're working on that. We've got our SDK and API, and basically, those are the tools that software app guys need to
Sure.
port over stuff.
Absolutely.
Um, so, so yeah, we're working on that, and being built on top of Android like that makes it a really very accessible.
So I'm gonna ask you a question that you probably, well, maybe you were prepared for, maybe you weren't, but I'm gonna ask you anyhow. So in lieu of, obviously you're seeing all these sanctions against China and the trade war. We saw what just happened to Huawei with
Mhm.
Google, and obviously sort of DJI is sort of floating out there as, hey, this could be a potential risk. Where is Xdynamics officially based? Like, do you guys consider yourself an American company, or is this based out of China? I'm just curious.
Neither.
Neither. Okay.
We're a Hong Kong company.
Okay.
So so the history there is it's not quite the same as a Chinese company. It's
Right.
more of a kind of capitalist society, um, and so not to get into the weeds on it. I
Sure.
mean, you could do a little research and understand the difference. But we are definitely, our CEO is Canadian and Hong Kongese, and we definitely have kind of a more, um, I don't know, that's
Westernized.
I would say, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
I would say a more westernized philosophy
Well,
for sure.
th-
Also, going with the data and stuff here.
yeah.
So one thing I want to mention that I think is a great selling point and a good philosophy to take, because what you're talking about is sharing data, right?
Right. Right.
So this sharing data thing, it's kind of interesting because none of us really knew that our data was going to get shared when all these technologies, Facebook, all these things,
I
right?
agree.
It kind of just started happening. And if we knew in front beforehand, we might have said no, but
Sure.
now it's just kind of happens. And it's like, that's the business model. You take data and you can make money off it. So we all just kind of ended up here. And our philosophy in the company right now is, and moving forward, is we don't actually collect any data. So you can fly 100% autonomously. The only data that's recorded is in the ground station on basically the data recorder, the black box.
Okay.
If you want to share that with us because you're like, hey, something happened, or I need
Right.
to, whatever, yes, you can share it with us and we'll help and work with you on that. But that is one big plus, I think, to our approach. And, it's not about, our company philosophy is, it's not about the do it fast and get it done. It's more of a long-term approach. And that's
Right.
why we're not looking to take advantage of whatever we could take advantage with data. We'd rather keep that completely, autonomous for the user.
And I'm glad you answered that, because I know a lot of people, that's a comment I will see countless times over when I post any product about, when it's a DJI anything. That is something that is genuinely a concern for a lot of people here. Another thing that is a concern, because obviously this drone, again, hate to bring up the price, but $2,500, will the future versions of this be affected by the tariffs in any way?
That, I mean,
And again, if you don't have the
I don't
answer,
know.
it's
Yeah,
okay. No,
I
but
don't
it's
know
just something I want to
exactly.
ask.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know right now. I don't know. I don't think
Okay.
I don't know
Fair
enough to
enough.
comment on it, really, to be
Fair
honest with
enough. I
you.
want to go ahead and look through some of these questions that some of them have asked.
Yeah.
Um, Al Diaz asks, do you all intend on making a portable version at any point?
Right now, no. There's a lot of that sized drone out there, and there's the market is saturated with that
Sure.
size.
Yeah, I
Like,
agree.
there's a
I
lot of
agree.
manufacturers that do that, and we come from the cinematographer mindset. What we do have is a heavy lift coming out next year that will be the smallest form factor heavy lift in existence when it comes out.
Wow.
You'll be able to have two guys throw a couple backpacks on and go wherever they want with a giant, like a drone that'll hold a red,
That, to me, that's exciting. Like,
Yeah.
from what I'm looking for, that's really exciting. Another question I got is there any confirmation on the one battery for 2,500 in the price point? Is that something that you guys are considering, shipping this with one battery?
Well, that is how we ship it.
That's how you are shipping it. So it is shipping
So
one.
there was a little confusion there, and I apologize for that, because
Okay.
like when we send you a drone, you're going to review it. I sent you
Sure.
an extra battery because
Well,
I
I
didn't want
appreciate
you to
that.
have I didn't want you to have to just keep charging, one battery. So yeah, it does ship with one battery.
Gotcha, gotcha. And you know what, Al, here's the thing. They are speaking to sort of that prosumer lineup. And again, I think that's important, that you're not, just speaking to everybody, because there are companies that they'll put a product out and it speaks to the volumes. And sometimes you need like a niche like this um, to do that heavy lifting that other companies just aren't doing. That's sort of a void that I've been having a problem trying to fill. Specifically, is I don't want to spend the money on Inspire, so I was really excited when I saw this product at CES, because I was like, okay, this is feasible, this is doable at this price level.
Yeah, no, sometimes if you make something, any product that kind of does everything really well, it doesn't do anything extremely well.
Right.
Because you have to make compromises everywhere to do a large variety of things. So our approach, and this is kind of our philosophical mindset, is that we want to do the cinematography thing, keeping that in mind. Every time we make an adjustment, we keep that in mind. So we're creating a product that may be able to reach, our goal is that it can reach farther in that aspect, because we're not held back by all the law of averages on everything else. That's
Right.
kind
And
of where we're coming from.
touching back on the data deal, I noticed that you all don't have any sort of NFCs or any built-in geofencing restricting software that I noticed. Is that something that, eventually
That's
you'll
another.
have to do that?
Well, we'll do whatever is required by the FAA, but right now that is not required.
Okay.
And we our position on that is simply that it's up to. We don't sell it. It's not a toy.
Sure.
This isn't a toy drone, and we don't sell it. We sell it to people who, generally speaking, have you probably already have your Part 107,
Yeah.
or you're very familiar with the laws and restrictions when you invest $2,500 into a drone. But it's about personal responsibility. It's kind of like you have a car; it's your job not to drive on the tarmac, of an airport.
Right.
So
And
you have a drone; that's your responsibility to use it, and really, it's none of our business. And the one thing I heard that's coming out, that'll probably come out from the FAA, is that some way for them to identify who you are by like maybe scan your drone while it's up in the air and they get like a license plate number basically. Um, that seems like the first step
sure.
that we'll probably see happen. I've heard rumors.
Yeah, I think it was ADS-B that by 2020 that most
Yeah,
any aircraft in controlled airspace, I believe, had to have that receiver so they can, be
yeah,
identified essentially. But I think that's good. I think there's a lot of takeaways to understand. I think the biggest thing is anytime you're like we're dealing with any sort of drone company, and it doesn't matter what brand it is, it always gets lumped into a comparison with obviously DJI. I hate to keep bringing that name up in an
no, they
Xdynamics
just
stream, but they sort of they're sort of that, they're up there. They've set the
yeah,
bar for what you can expect, and I think that people automatically assume that this is a drone. This is a drone that everybody can buy. This is a drone for everyone. And I think that's important that, we heard it out of your mouths as to like, who are you gearing this for? What is this for? Because we're seeing a lot of things that were, really different. And where I may be okay with something not being there, somebody else may not be.
yeah,
I think we
yeah.
got
I'm trying
more
to
questions
kill
here.
that
Yeah.
real quick. Hold on.
So yeah, hey, what's up with that? Captain Drone and myself, we didn't get a ball cap. How does Ken get a ball cap and a lanyard?
I will send you guys a ball.
Okay,
Look at this.
cool.
Pretty
I
nice.
know it is pretty sharp. It is pretty sharp. I think it would look good on Cap and I. All right, so let's take a look at some of these questions here. So Jimmy Thompson says, I really hope the kinks get worked out. This thing will never replace my current Phantom. Sorry to hear that, but can earn a spot next to equipment that has gotten me where I am. So he is a 107 pilot, does some fantastic work. And obviously, he does look like he has an Inspire 2 in the avatar there. So, he's somebody that would seriously be obviously looking at something like that.
Yeah, and I really appreciate it. We're getting there. Like you said, there's a couple little kinks. I think there are things we can overcome and we will overcome.
Right.
And well, yeah.
So we're obviously I have yet to ship mine out. That's my procrastination in travel. I'm
Oh, you're
sorry.
good.
I blame Billy for dragging me up to Philadelphia. But so we're going to send these units back. You're obviously going to take a look at the data that we all experience different issues. Sort of compare it. Now, are you guys active on social media? I noticed that your Twitter handle is not really been current. Is that something that you guys can maybe make an effort in? So, because I know I'm a big Twitter person, Facebook too. But some of us like to, maybe see some updates on this so we can understand, like, for you guys to be the most communicative as you can. I think Twitter or even Facebook, just maybe some daily updates, not daily updates, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what? We're more active in Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
But point well taken on Twitter. We'll look into that and see if we can start pushing some updates. Maybe use it in a little bit different way, more of like the product update versus how we use our other.
I think it would be good for you guys as a whole, because I mean, I think with Twitter, you reach an audience that doesn't know you essentially. And I see like obviously DJI has their support on there. I'm not saying you guys have the staff that can do that, but or we need to after you get these units back and fix them. But I mean, I think there's a lot really going for this. I think it could be a lot. I've seen comments that I follow your Facebook page, so I read through all the comments, and I seen someone on there saying that you brought us technology that was in the DJI Spark, and I really don't agree with that comment or statement whatsoever. I just don't. I don't think it's even on the same level by any fathom.
Yeah, if you do some, and we've got some side-by-side comparisons and stuff coming out soon, you'll be able to see. And I think no one, no one's complained about the quality of the camera after using it.
No, I think, like I said, post sharpening and
yeah.
just a little bit of correction,
So,
I think it
yeah,
gets a solid image.
yeah. So I think when we'll send that stuff out, I'll be sure to let you know about it too. And I mean, I think it'll speak for itself. The camera, our guys have done an awesome job.
And I think we made some suggestions to, obviously we look at, like, I look at all different applications, like Parrot, has an immense amount of minute details that you can adjust on the gimbal, the pitch, the pitch, the speeds. So obviously, whatever you can obviously borrow from, I guess, the best practices from every brand is great. I'm okay with that. I'm seeing a lot of range questions, and I think you sort of identified that before, that you really don't have any need to adjust that range because you're, advertising this as a prosumer drone, and most cinematographers are flying within line of sight of their target.
I would sum it up like this on the range, and I do appreciate the questions on that. And here's how we see it, and this was our approach. So you have the range is not 3 miles. It's 1 kilometer. What you get at 1 kilometer is a display that's 1080/60, and you get the fastest latency. So for professional use situations, when you're low to the ground and, where in another manufacturer, you might run into something before you can, it might look like you're still going close by to an object when you've actually already hit the object. Our latency is so quick that that's not going to happen. You're going to be able to evade, move.
Right. It's almost in real time. And like I think we talked about before, you said that there are some adjustments that need to be made to the algorithm for that.
Yeah.
I did see somebody mention about the horizon tilt. I did notice, at least in my unit, a couple of shots that I want to sort of compare this to a lazy eye, a little bit of a lazy gimbal, where the reaction time of the level of the horizon was a little bit off. I'm assuming that you guys are aware of this as well.
We have 2 things happening.
Okay.
Right now, the reaction time, just like you said, it will level, but it's slow.
Sure.
The other thing we're going to do is that's coming out in firmware update is actually adjusting the gimbal from the UI while you're in the air.
Okay.
So you can plus or minus it a few degrees either way to kind of tweak it to your preference. So you can actually choose to have a Dutch angle if you want a Dutch angle. You might want that for some reason, artistically, right? So you can actually choose to have it.
Nice. I like it. I think for the most part, you've answered my questions. I'm going to turn it over to, thank you, Ken. Ken would like to know if the plant behind you is real or fake. He's concerned about its well-being.
This is real, Ken.
It's all real. It's all real.
It's a real plant.
Thank you, Ken, for the $5 super chat, by the way. Blue Eye Visuals would like to know, will it have aperture control? I know on the compact sensor, there is no mechanical aperture on there.
Not on that, but on the Micro Four Thirds, yes.
So on the Micro Four Thirds, it will. Will it all? And I'm assuming as well, it's going to have some form of autofocus, being able to change lenses out and all that good stuff. So I think that's Ken Gimbal. Yeah, I think so. California brings up a great point. He was asking about the twitch that we noticed when we were orbiting. And again, I think that reverts back to sort of that little bit of latency and speed of how that gimbal's actually reacting to us panning or orbiting.
We are already working on that. We're going to look at some of the flight data from those drones as well, but that is something that we can fix.
So I want. So does anybody else have any other questions? I'm looking through here. Wow, it's going quicker. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just reading through some of these questions. I'm looking. If you guys have any questions, because I don't want to keep too much of Maury's time. I don't want to keep too much of his time because I know his time is important to him as well. But if you have any questions, let's get them out there now. But I think the biggest takeaway is that, you guys are listening. It's not like you're forcing anybody to buy this drone. You're not forcing it down people's throat. You have a product and you're proud of your product and you have set a price for it. Obviously, you know the worth of it, and I can respect that. And that it's geared to a specific client, it's geared to a specific pilot. And that's the biggest takeaway. But the reality is you're listening to us. You understood we had problems and you're going to fix them and you're going to make good on this drone that should be delivered. You said what, about 2.5 months, give or take?
For the Micro Four Thirds.
Okay, for the Micro Four Thirds. So with these issues that we're experiencing, what do you think once the team gets a chance to see this data?
Within about the time period you just mentioned, something like that. It's hard to say exactly.
It sounds like you guys are really working tirelessly to fix these
I'll tell
problems.
you a good analogy. We're a smaller company. We're not this huge thing. So, but there are advantages to that because we're not a big ship that can't make a change. It's like we can take a corner fast.
Right.
Because we do 90% of our own R&D, 90% of our own manufacturing, we're nimble. So
I like that.
It's in some ways it's a disadvantage being a smaller company. In some ways it's an advantage because we can make moves on the production line. We can make changes quickly. So I think it'll serve us well in this capacity to iron out a few things and keep this thing rocking and rolling.
And I think the reality is even a large company can have a sort of a snafu or a disaster. I mean, if we all look at Samsung, for instance, one of the largest phone makers in the world, obviously phone, different spectrum, they released a product that was about $2,000, that Samsung Fold. Within about, 5 or 6 days of reviewers having them in their hands, realize, we have issues, we have problems. The screens are no longer working. We have other problems with the hinge, with the display covers. So they realized, and they had to reverse course. They had to pull those units back, and they said, "Hey, we're not, totally canceling it. We're going to make it better, and we'll let you know when it's ready." And I think that's important. That if something's just not ready, that you identify it. As much as it hurts to say or pains your development or your production to do so, that you do it. And I think that's important.
We're here to succeed. We're here to listen. And I mean, it's a great value to us to hear and chat with you. And,
I appreciate you coming on. No, thank you for, I'm glad, we had the conversation last week. It's hard to really convey because, I got a chance to go out, and play with this drone at CES. I got a chance to obviously have it for a while, privileged to have it. And it's hard to really convey even through video, like the overall feel of it. Like, I saw somebody say, would you guys consider making a plastic cheaper version? I don't know if I would want a plastic cheaper version, because once you get something like this in your hands, you realize, oh, this is really nice. It's sort of the Bugatti of drones. Not everybody has a Bugatti, would love one, but you can appreciate that overall build quality. I think that's important. It's a really important takeaway.
Appreciate that.
So, but that's all I have for Maury and Xdynamics. Does anybody have anything else? Other than that, dude, I really appreciate you taking the time out of Wednesday.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
And we really look forward to the improvements and the communication that you guys are going to bring going forward.
Hats on the way.
Is it? I hope so. Tracking information tonight. I'll send you the drone when you send the hat. I'm just joking. I don't want cops at my house. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I don't stream very often, but stay original.